The morning sky was still bruised purple when Maya Ellis stepped off the subway and into the canyon of glass and steel that was downtown. The city was already awake, taxis honking, suits rushing, phones glued to ears, but Maya felt strangely alone as she stared up at the towering headquarters of Ardent Global Solutions. 40 floors of money, power, and ambition reflected her own face back at her from the mirrored entrance. A woman most people would never look at twice. She adjusted the strap of her modest handbag and smoothed the sleeves of her beige blouse, a quiet ritual she performed whenever her nerves threatened to show. Today wasn't just another job. Today was survival. Ardent Global's CEO Lucas Harrington had gone through 8 assistants in less than a year. The recruiter hadn't tried to soften it. In fact, she'd sounded almost relieved when Maya accepted the offer without hesitation. "You understand he's difficult," the recruiter had said carefully. Maya had smiled then, the kind of smile that came from long practice. "I understand difficult." What she hadn't said was that she'd grown up translating silence into meaning, reading moods like survival manuals, learning how to disappear when necessary and stand firm when it mattered. Being underestimated wasn't new to her. It was familiar terrain. Inside the lobby, everything gleamed. Marble floors, minimalist sculptures, the kind of art that looked expensive because it was meaningless. A security guard glanced at her badge, then glanced again, his eyes lingering just a fraction too long as if trying to place her worth. The receptionist, impeccably styled and visibly exhausted, gave Maya a sympathetic look. "You're Mr. Harrington's new assistant?" "Yes," Maya said. "Executive elevator. 40th floor." Pause. "Good luck." The elevator ride felt longer than it should have. Maya watched her reflection in the polished metal walls, dark curls pulled back into a low bun, calm brown eyes that hid a lifetime of quiet endurance. She inhaled slowly as the doors slid open. The executive floor was silent in a way that screamed power. Frosted glass walls, muted colors, a hum of restrained urgency. At the far end, behind floor-to-ceiling windows, sat Lucas Harrington. He didn't look up. Maya stood there, portfolio in hand, waiting. 1 minute passed. Then another. Finally, she cleared her throat. "Mr. Harrington? I'm Maya Ellis. We have a 9 o'clock interview." Without lifting his eyes from the screen, he raised a finger. "Wait." So she did. When he finally turned, his gaze was sharp, assessing, dismissive all at once. Lucas Harrington was younger than Maya had expected, mid-30s maybe, but there was nothing youthful about the way he carried himself. He wore authority like armor. Dark suit. Perfect posture. Eyes that measured value in seconds. "You're late," he said. "I arrived 5 minutes early," Maya replied calmly. A flicker of irritation crossed his face. "Sit." She sat. "You're number 9, he said bluntly. "The others didn't last. They always think they're different. They never are." Maya met his gaze without flinching. "I don't think I'm different." "Good," he said. "Confidence tends to slow people down." He skimmed her resume as if it were a receipt. "You've worked in administration. Mid-level firms. Nothing impressive. Nothing flashy," Maya corrected. "But effective." He ignored that. "This job requires precision. Long hours. No mistakes. You manage my calendar, my correspondence, board prep, and internal coordination. You arrive at 7. You leave when the work is done. I understand. You won't receive praise. You won't receive patience. I'm not here for either." That finally made him look at her again. "Your desk is outside," he said, already turning back to his screen. "Quarterly reports need reformatting by noon. Style guide is in the shared drive. Don't ask questions." And just like that, the interview was over. Maya walked out to the desk that was now hers, small, windowless, strategically positioned so Lucas could see her but never truly notice her. No welcome. No introduction. Just work. The first week was brutal. Emails at all hours. Meetings scheduled and rescheduled without warning. Documents returned with red marks but no explanation. When Maya spoke, Lucas responded with silence or curt nods, as if acknowledging her presence was a concession. Other executives barely acknowledged her at all. "She's just the assistant," Maya heard someone say once in the break room, as if she weren't standing right there. She said nothing. She worked. She stayed late. Learned systems no one bothered to explain. Anticipated needs before they were voiced. She fixed mistakes that weren't hers and absorbed blame that was. And Lucas Harrington ignored her completely. No eye contact. No acknowledgement. No recognition. It would have broken someone who needed validation to survive. Maya didn't. She'd learned long ago that silence could be endured. That worth didn't require witnesses. By the end of the first month, things began to change, quietly. A meeting started on time because Maya had anticipated a scheduling conflict no one else noticed. A client presentation flowed seamlessly because Maya had reorganized the briefing documents overnight. A crisis was avoided because she caught a contract discrepancy minutes before it went out. Lucas never said thank you. But he stopped missing deadlines. The office noticed. And then one afternoon someone else did too. Ethan Cole. He was the head of strategic partnerships, charismatic, well-respected, and disarmingly kind in a place that thrived on indifference. He stopped by Maya's desk with a smile that reached his eyes. "Hey," he said. "You're the reason the Northwell deal didn't implode, right?" Maya blinked, surprised. I helped." He laughed softly. "That's one way to put it." From then on he made a point to say hello. To ask her opinion. To treat her like she mattered. And Lucas noticed. He didn't say anything. But the air shifted. When Ethan invited Maya to coffee one afternoon, casual, friendly, sincere, Lucas interrupted from his office without looking up. "Miss Ellis, I need you." It wasn't a request. Maya stood slowly, something new and dangerous stirring in her chest. She realized then that being invisible had never bothered her. But being taken for granted? That was something else entirely. By the start of the second month, Maya Ellis had learned exactly how invisible a person could become while being essential to everything. Her mornings began before sunrise and ended long after the city lights flickered on, but her presence in the office remained something Lucas Harrington acknowledged only when something went wrong, or when he needed something immediately. He still didn't say her name in meetings. "She'll handle it," he'd say, gesturing vaguely in her direction as if she were a function rather than a person. And Maya handled it. She handled impossible schedules that overlapped across 3 time zones. She handled executives who forgot deadlines and blamed her for their own negligence. She handled the quiet sting of being talked over, dismissed, or mistaken for someone's personal secretary rather than the operational backbone she had become. But something else had begun to change. People started coming to her first. Not officially. Not openly. But quietly. A junior analyst stopped by her desk asking how to prepare for a board presentation. A senior manager asked if she could take a quick look at a contract before it went upstairs. The finance team began looping her into emails they used to send directly to Lucas. And Maya helped them all. Not because she wanted credit, but because she understood something most of them didn't. Systems mattered more than egos and people mattered more than systems. Lucas noticed the efficiency. He noticed the smoother operations. He noticed the lack of fires he used to put out daily. What he didn't notice was Maya herself. Until Ethan Cole kept noticing her. It started with small things. A coffee left on her desk with a note that read, "Thought you might need this." A comment during a meeting where Ethan redirected attention back to Maya when someone tried to talk over her. "Actually," Ethan said once, smiling easily, "that was Maya's idea. She deserves the credit." The room had gone quiet. Maya had felt heat rush to her face, not embarrassment but something unfamiliar. Validation. Lucas had said nothing. His expression unreadable. But afterward the air around him had been tense. Ethan didn't push. He didn't crowd her. He treated her the way people should treat each other, like she mattered. And that, Maya realized, was why it felt dangerous. One evening, as most of the office emptied out, Ethan stopped by her desk again. "You always stay this late?" he asked gently. Maya smiled faintly. "Usually later." "That doesn't seem fair." She shrugged. "Fair doesn't pay bills." Something flickered across Ethan's face then, respect maybe? Or concern. "There's a charity gala this weekend," he said. "Arden sponsors it every year. No pressure, but would you like to come with me?" The question hung in the air. Maya opened her mouth to answer. And that was when Lucas's office door opened. He didn't look at her. He looked at Ethan. "Cole," he said coolly, "weren't you supposed to send me the revised projections an hour ago?" Ethan straightened. "They're in your inbox." "Then perhaps you should focus on your responsibilities," Lucas replied, eyes sharp. "Instead of distracting my assistant." The words landed like a slap. My assistant. Maya felt something inside her snap, not loudly, not dramatically, but decisively. "This is my break," she said calmly before she could stop herself. Lucas turned slowly, surprise flashing across his face. It was the first time she'd openly challenged him. "I need those Morrison files immediately," he said. Maya met his gaze. "I'll bring them in 10 minutes. The silence stretched. Then Lucas nodded once and turned away. Ethan exhaled. "I'm sorry." Maya shook her head. You didn't do anything wrong. But as Ethan walked away, she knew something fundamental had shifted. That night, Maya didn't stay late. She went home and lay awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying months of dismissal, of quiet endurance, of being treated like she was replaceable when she wasn't. And for the first time, she wondered why she had accepted it so easily. The next morning, Lucas found the Morrison files on his desk, perfectly organized, annotated, and color-coded. He paused. It was the first time he had paused over her work instead of consuming it without thought. Later that day, a board member interrupted Maya mid-sentence during a briefing. "Let's hear from someone more senior," he said dismissively. Before Maya could respond, Lucas spoke. "She is the most informed person in this room on this matter," he said flatly. "If you interrupt her again, you'll answer to me." Every head turned. Maya felt the room shift. Lucas didn't look at her. But he didn't ignore her either. Still, the damage had been done. That afternoon, Ethan found Maya in the lobby. "I don't want to make things awkward," he said carefully. "But I meant what I asked. You deserve to be seen. Not managed." Maya looked at him, really looked at him, and felt something warm and steady settle in her chest. "I'd like that," she said. Across the room, through glass and reflection, Lucas Harrington watched. And for the first time since Maya Ellis had walked into his office, he realized something he should have understood from the beginning. Ignoring her hadn't made her invisible. It had made her invaluable, to everyone else. The invitation sat on Maya Ellis's desk like a quiet rebellion. It was printed on thick, cream-colored paper, elegant, understated, expensive. The annual Ardent Foundation Gala. Black tie. High-profile donors, board members, press. The kind of event where power was displayed in smiles and handshakes, where reputations were built or quietly destroyed. And beneath the embossed lettering was Ethan Cole's handwriting. "I'd really like you to come with me." Maya stared at it longer than she should have. She hadn't said yes yet. Not officially. But she hadn't said no either. And somehow, that felt like the most dangerous choice of all. Lucas Harrington noticed the change in her before he noticed the invitation. She spoke less. But when she did, people listened. She no longer rushed to anticipate his every need before he asked. She still did her job, flawlessly, but something had shifted in her posture, in her presence. She was no longer shrinking herself to fit the space he allowed. And it unsettled him. He told himself it was about efficiency. About control. About maintaining professional distance. But it wasn't. It was about the way Ethan's name kept appearing on her calendar. Meetings that ran a little long, conversations that ended with laughter. It was about the way Maya smiled now, not out of politeness but because she wanted to. Lucas hated that smile. He hated that he hadn't been the one to put it there. The breaking point came on a Thursday afternoon. Maya was reviewing final logistics for an overseas acquisition when Lucas stormed out of his office, phone pressed tightly to his ear. He ended the call abruptly and turned to her. "Why wasn't I informed about the Zurich delay?" he demanded. Maya didn't flinch. "Your Tuesday." Email subject line, regulatory hold, immediate review. His jaw tightened. He remembered it now. He'd skimmed it. Dismissed it. "Well, fix it," he snapped. "I already did," she said calmly. "Legal confirmed compliance an hour ago. The deal's back on track." The room went quiet. Lucas stared at her, something unreadable crossing his face. For the first time, it occurred to him that he no longer had full control of the narrative, or of her. Later that day he overheard laughter outside his office. Maya's laughter. He looked up just in time to see Ethan leaning casually against her desk, saying something that made her shake her head, smiling. Lucas stood without thinking. "Miss Ellis," he said sharply. "My office. Now." The tone was unmistakable. Maya looked at him, then at Ethan. "Excuse me." She followed Lucas inside and closed the door behind her. "What is this?" he demanded. Maya blinked. "What is what?" "This," he gestured vaguely. "Distraction. Unprofessional behavior." Her expression hardened, not angry, not defensive. Just tired. "With respect," she said evenly, "I haven't missed a deadline. I haven't made a mistake. And I haven't violated any policy." "That's not the point," he snapped. "Then what is the point?" she asked. The question hung in the air between them, heavy and undeniable. Lucas turned away, running a hand through his hair. "You're my assistant." "I'm also a person," Maya replied quietly. "And I don't belong to you." The words landed harder than any accusation could have. Lucas turned back, his face pale with something dangerously close to panic. "You're crossing a line." "No," she said softly. "I think I finally see it." She reached into her drawer and pulled out the gala invitation, setting it on his desk. "I was invited as a guest," she continued. "Not as your assistant. And I'm allowed to say yes." Lucas stared at the card as if it were a threat. "You're going with him?" he said flatly. "I might," she replied. Something in his expression broke. That night, the board convened an emergency meeting. A critical investor had raised concerns: misplaced documents, unclear communication. Fingers pointed. Voices rose. And for the first time Lucas faltered. He looked around the table, irritation mounting, and finally said, "Maya?" Every head turned. She stood slowly, heart pounding, and spoke with calm authority. She clarified timelines, corrected misinformation, and presented solutions that silenced the room. By the time she finished, the crisis was over. Applause followed. Actual applause. Lucas watched as people thanked her, congratulated her, treated her as an equal. And in that moment, the karma he had been unknowingly building finally came due. Because Maya Ellis no longer needed his approval. And he had never needed her more. The night of the Ardent Foundation Gala arrived with ruthless precision. Maya Ellis stood in front of her apartment mirror, hardly recognizing the woman staring back at her. The gown Ethan had insisted she choose was elegant but understated, deep emerald silk that complemented her skin, soft lines that moved when she did. Her hair fell in loose waves, no longer pulled tight in the controlled bun she wore to disappear at work. For years Maya had learned how to be small. Tonight she allowed herself to be seen. When Ethan arrived, he paused at the doorway, genuinely stunned. "Wow," he said softly. "They really have no idea who they've been ignoring." Maya smiled, not nervously, not apologetically, but with quiet confidence. The gala was everything she expected. Crystal chandeliers, flashing cameras, power dressed in politeness, conversations layered with ambition. Maya felt eyes on her as Ethan introduced her, not as Lucas Harrington's assistant, but as Maya Ellis, the woman who had quietly saved 3 deals this quarter. People listened. People remembered her name. Across the room, Lucas Harrington froze. He hadn't expected this. Hadn't expected her to look like that. Hadn't expected the way people leaned toward her, engaged with her, respected her. He stood surrounded by executives and donors, but for the first time in his career he felt irrelevant. When Maya laughed at something Ethan whispered, something inside Lucas twisted sharply. He crossed the room before he could stop himself. "Maya," he said too quickly. She turned. Calm, polite, distant. "Mr. Harrington." The formality cut deeper than anger ever could. "You look nice," he said stiffly. "Thank you," she replied. Then she turned back to Ethan. Lucas stood there, dismissed. The karma was quiet, but devastating. Later, during the evening's keynote, a sudden technical issue disrupted the live stream. Confusion spread. Staff scrambled. Donors murmured. Lucas stepped forward to take control. And failed. It was Maya who moved first, directing staff, calming the room, restoring order with efficiency so seamless it looked effortless. Applause followed, louder this time. The spotlight shifted. After the gala, Lucas found her on the terrace, city lights glittering below. "I owe you an apology," he said. She didn't respond. "I treated you like you were invisible," he continued, voice strained. "Like you were replaceable. And I was wrong." Maya turned to face him. "You didn't just ignore me," she said quietly. "You decided who I was without ever asking." Lucas swallowed. "I was afraid." "Of what?" "Of needing you." Silence. "I don't need an apology," Maya said. "I need respect. From you. From anyone." "I want to give you more than that," he said desperately. She met his gaze, steady, unyielding. "Then you should have done it before someone else did." Lucas had no answer. The next morning the office buzzed with rumors. Maya's name was everywhere. So was Ethan's. So was the fact that Lucas Harrington had finally noticed the woman who had been holding everything together. But it was too late. Or was it? The Monday after the gala felt different. Not louder. Not dramatic. Just honest. Maya Ellis walked into Ardent Global the same way she always had, calm, composed, prepared. But this time heads turned. Conversations paused. People smiled at her, nodded, acknowledged her presence in ways they never had before. She wasn't invisible anymore. And Lucas Harrington felt it the moment she stepped onto the executive floor. Her desk was still there. Her files still perfect. Her calendar still flawless. But something fundamental had shifted, not in her work but in the balance of power between them. Lucas waited until mid-morning before asking her into his office. Not demanding. Asking. Maya, he said quietly, standing when she entered. Please sit. She did. I spoke with the board this morning, he continued. They were impressed by you. Several of them asked why someone with your operational insight was still in an assistant role. Maya listened without reacting. I'd like to offer you a promotion, Lucas said. Director of Operations. Immediate effect. New compensation package. Full authority. The room was silent. 4 months, this moment had felt like something she'd been working toward without allowing herself to hope for it. And yet, when it arrived, it didn't feel like victory. It felt like clarity. I appreciate the offer, Maya said carefully. But before I answer, I need to say something. Lucas nodded. You didn't overlook me by accident, she said. You made a choice. You decided I was small enough to ignore. That my job title defined my value. He flinched. I won't accept any role that's built on guilt, she continued. Or fear of losing control. If I stay, it's because you see me. Fully. And because this company is willing to change how it treats people like me. Lucas swallowed hard. You're right, he said quietly. And if you walk away, I'll deserve it. Maya stood. She walked to the window, the city stretching endlessly below. I'm not walking away, she said finally. But I'm not staying the same either. She turned back to him. I'll accept the role. On one condition. Anything. That we create pathways for people who are overlooked. Assistants. Coordinators. Analysts. People who do the work without applause. Lucas nodded without hesitation. Done. News spread quickly. Maya Ellis wasn't just promoted, she was respected. Ethan congratulated her that evening over dinner, pride unmistakable in his eyes. You earned this, he said. So did you, she replied softly. For seeing me when it mattered. And Lucas? Lucas Harrington learned something no business school had ever taught him. Power doesn't come from control. It comes from humility. Weeks later, Maya passed her old desk, the one without a window, without recognition, and paused. She smiled. Not with bitterness, but with gratitude. Because sometimes the greatest karma isn't revenge. It's growth.